business. Thanks for coming out tonight.
I wrote me a manual, a step-by-step booklet for you to get.
Oh, I make money move.
You can't see me, my time is now.
What up, guys? Welcome back to the Fitness Times Business Podcast, the show created to provide you with the practical and strategic advice to help you level up in fitness, business, your career, your relationships, and your life. My name is Joseph Mencel. I am your host, and I'm joined in this episode by co-host Leah.
Hello.
What's going on?
What's happening?
It's been a month or so in between collaborative episodes between you and I.
It's been a little bit, yeah.
I'm excited to have you back because the topic for this show we actually threw around about a month ago.
Yeah.
And we were like, because something happened.
Right.
And we were like, we have to podcast about that. And we kind of put it in the think tank, the think bank, and we've let it accumulate interest over time. And now we're ready to drop it on you guys.
We are ready.
The title of this show is It's Just Business. And I know as soon as I say it's just business, a lot of you have been on the receiving end of that comment, as too have I. And a lot of you have dished that comment out. As too have I. As too have you.
Yeah, I have as well. Yep.
And we're gonna take a deep dive on both sides of that and kind of unpack, when it's appropriate to use this phrase. It's just business. When it's not appropriate to use it, and the lessons that we've learned over the years as we've become older and wiser and just better fucking people.
Just better human beings.
Before we get stuck in, Leah, I just want to say a massive thank you to the listeners and the viewers, guys. The way that our recording schedule on this podcast, so you guys know what's up, because I know a bunch of you follow my personal Instagram story and you're like, oh, they're recording a new podcast, and you're expecting that one to go live that day, but like,
and then they get the
yeah. So we record the podcast on a Wednesday or a Thursday, depending on availability, if we've got special guests, so on and so forth. And then the podcast always goes live on the next Wednesday. So the podcasts go live on Wednesday, but they get shot a week before, and then we edit and we pull clips out and so on and so forth. And so just this morning, I was having a look at the analytics of the podcast that went live last week. The title of the show was Just Take One More Step. And the first 24 hours, because I looked this morning, it went live yesterday. The first 24 hours, that show broke a new download record. So it's the most downloaded podcast in the first 24 hours in the history of the Fitness Times Business Podcast. And that's because of you guys.
That's crazy.
That's because of you guys sharing the show. That's because of you guys taking the time to tell people about the show. That's because of you guys taking a screenshot in your favorite podcasting platform and posting it in your Instagram story as we ask. And we're reaching more and more people each and every episode.
Just out of curiosity, was that a solo podcast?
It was a solo
man,
podcast.
You don't even need me here.
It was a solo podcast, but to be fair, it was kind of on the coattails of the guest podcast that we did with IFBB Bikini Pro Nicole Tan, because that was a super popular podcast as well. So I think Nicole kind of brought a whole bunch of new listeners.
Yeah.
And then you guys have now kind of put us in your rotation. But
cool.
But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you guys because it's incredibly fulfilling to see us reach thousands upon thousands of people with these messages and to see you guys get around it, to see you guys share it. So I just wanted to extend my gratitude for that. But now we're ready to get stuck into It's Just Business.
Let's do it.
What do you got for me here?
Man.
I got so much.
You know how much
I'm fired the fuck up.
Despise this, this slogan.
You passionately get fired up about it.
And it's the whole it's just business followed very quickly by it's nothing personal.
Yeah.
And it's just it grinds my gears.
So the first thing I did when I was thinking about this topic was I was like, where did I first hear this? I was like, because obviously I've been on the receiving end of it a lot, and I've also dished it out, not recently, but when I was younger, when I was first getting into business, I kind of dished it out, right? Because I thought it was appropriate.
You hear it a lot, you hear it a lot in pop culture. Yes. So you would have recently heard it in it's the tagline for The Apprentice. It is. So Donald Trump has the whole "it's just business," and then everyone here's seen Wolf of Wall Street. Yep. And like, it's a Jordan Belfort, like he's like, one of his, things that he's famous for saying is like, it's just business, nothing personal. Yep. But like, it actually goes further back than that.
I know.
Yeah. Like it goes way back.
How far back you going here?
I'm going back to like the mob.
Yes.
All right.
Good.
So, yeah. So
well, I'm just going to interrupt because I think you're exactly where I'm at. I reckon, and I had to go way back for this. I reckon the first time that I heard the "it's just business, it's nothing personal" was actually in The Godfather.
Of course it was.
Right? And it was Al Pacino who played Michael Corleone, and he was talking to his brother Sonny. Right, and they were
great fucking movie.
Yeah, no, it's a great fucking movie. And it's The Godfather. It's part 2, right? I'm pretty sure it's The Godfather part 2. And they're about to go into like a war, like a mob war. And I think it's in regards to taking out one of the competitor families, right? And Al Pacino, Michael Corleone, turns to Sonny and says, "It's not personal. It's strictly business." I reckon that was the first time I heard it.
So it actually does, like, in history, date back to like the 1930s. Like it is from the mob, and
there it is.
I did a bit of research on it as well, and it was this guy Otto Berman. So he was the accountant for the mob back in the 1930s, and he used to use it, as they took like the month's money protection, or they were about to like, I don't know, like deal some punishment to someone. It was like this line of like, it's just business. And yeah, so really it stems from like petty criminal sort of stuff, which, kind of explains the way that I feel, or why I feel the way I do about it now, probably.
So whenever I come across these things where it's like these sayings that are part of culture, right? And you kind of know the context that they're used in. I always like to like Google it and just kind of see what comes up. So I did that for this. I was like, I wonder what Google says about it's just business. And so this is straight from Google, right? Google says when someone says it's just business, is not personal, it's nothing personal. The decision or action being taken is done rationally with business interests primarily in mind. Right? That's what Google says. And so then the next result was Urban Dictionary.
Yeah. Love it.
And Urban Dictionary says, if this term is used on you, then you're about to get fucked over in such a way that will almost destroy you. And I was like, that's much more to my personal experience of being on the receiving end of it's just business, it's nothing personal. But I think, ultimately what it's about, and you guys will resonate with this if you've been on the receiving end for sure, is it's a way of removing the human element from a difficult decision, right? It's the way of going, you know what, this is a really tough decision because of an existing personal relationship, because of an existing human element. And by saying it's just business, it's nothing personal, that allows me to act in a way that's in misalignment with my personal core values and my personal most important virtues, and is going to allow me to make this tough decision notwithstanding the misalignment. That's effectively what it is.
I like to call it a moral escape clause.
Yes.
It's almost like it's a way to make the person feeling it, saying it, feel like justified in what they're doing, which is really what they're doing is they're applying cold logic to human impact. Like it's, and it's just almost like this, like this clause that seems to excuse that. When in reality, it's not the case. It's never just business. Like it's always going to affect someone personally. It's always going to, opinions will be established. Connections are built, destroyed in the process. Like it's never just business.
And I remember, it's funny because just as we were doing last minute preparation for this podcast, we were literally sitting in the breakout area here at MJ headquarters, and I asked, it was you were in there, obviously, Luke was in there, Vince was in there, and I said, guys, I'm preparing for this podcast, and I really want to try and give some examples of where, as a business, as a team, as a company, we have dished this out. Yeah. where we have, done something that has been at odds with our company core values, and we've justified it with it's just business, it's nothing personal. And we were in there for a good 25 minutes.
We were in there for a while, racking our brains.
Yeah. And we couldn't pull up anything, which I think, speaks volumes for how we kind of conduct ourselves as a company, because you've been here the better part of 10 years, right? And we couldn't think of anything in the last 10 years or so. I do have some examples that I want to dive into even earlier than that, for the listeners and the viewers, just to add some context. But I think, when I was younger, I dished this out more times than I'm proud of, to admit, for sure. And the reason why, and when I say younger, I'm talking like, very early days in business, late teens. I first started the MJ business when I was 19, and early 20s, right? So I'm talking like 15 years ago. And I think the reason why I dished it out back then, obviously I didn't know any better, but because it was a part of pop culture, I kind of assumed or came to believe that, all of the old school successful businessmen seemed to do this, right? This was how you became successful in business, is you fucked people over.
It was, wasn't it? It was really like how it was the dog eat dog world sort of approach. And it was just, it was how to be successcul.
100%.
Yeah,
and the
definitely.
people that I looked up into in business seem to do it.
Yeah.
Like they even some of the most inspirational people at that point in my life who I still seek inspiration from, the Steve Jobses of the world, the Richard Bransons of the world, it was kind of how they did things. And so I was like, well, if that's how they do things and they've been doing it for decades and I'm new to this game, well, I'm just going to copy what they do. And so I'm going to use it's just business, it's nothing personal. I'm going to step on people and I'm going to fuck people over. And that's how I'm going to become successful in business. And let me tell you, for a little bit, it worked. Yeah. So I kept doing it until it stopped working.
Let me like think about this for a second, because those people that you drew inspiration from who used to use that phrase, I think one thing we need to know is, once upon a time, that attitude or that motto or whatever may have been successful, but I honestly think that the reason it is not as successful in the world that we live and operate in has a lot to do with social media, and a lot to do with, like back in the day, like word of mouth was literally like person to person. Like your word of mouth circles were small, and it was just, you had to have that conversation. Whereas now it's like you can reach people all over the globe very quickly. Yeah. So I just think that, I'm not completely negating the fact that once upon a time that like brutal, it's just business, it's nothing personal approach may have been successful for like the Jordan Belforts and the Donald Trumps and the Gordon Geckos and like all of these people who coined that term. But I just think now, especially in the world that we live in, which is ruled by social media, it's just not the approach to take anymore.
Well, there's that. And then there's also the change in generations as well, right? Like if you go back to the greatest generation, if you go back to the baby boomers in particular, and then you kind of follow the generational changes, right? Gen X, Gen Y, millennials, Gen Z, and whatever the fuck they call the generation now. I'm not even sure if it's got a name. The next generation after that, you have generational changes, right? And the expectations of every successive generation kind of change, right? And if you kind of go back and you look at the generational changes from the greatest generation to the baby boomers, I think that's kind of where this, it's okay to kind of fuck people over and business interests come first. And I mean, look at the structure of the corporation as we know it today, right? It's like shareholders' interests come first and fuck everyone else, or not necessarily fuck everyone else, but everyone falls underneath that, and decisions are made to maximize shareholder profit and shareholder return. And in the meantime, the employees sit below that, the customers sit below that, the environment sits below that. It's if you kind of consider the generational changes, I think that plays into it, to a similar magnitude that social media does as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the first thing to note is that every business decision involves people.
100%.
If it wasn't for people, we wouldn't have a business. So by the very nature of that, saying that a certain decision is just business, it's nothing personal, is a complete cop-out, because every business decision is personal, whether it affects a staff member, whether it affects a customer, whether it affects a supplier, whether it affects a business partner, whether it affects a shareholder, everything is personal. Every decision is personal. So I think first and foremost, this old school saying needs to be eradicated from vocabularies all over the fucking globe, because it's complete fucking bullshit. And, one of my favorite Maya Angelou quotes, we have a poster of Maya Angelou here in the main office. Yeah. What's the quote on there? Nothing works unless you do.
Yes, that's a quote.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah,
but another one of my favorites is people will never forget, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And often when, this phrase of it's just business, it's nothing personal, is delivered when you've just made a decision that's going to make someone feel like shit.
Yeah.
So I think that that's something very important to keep in mind as well. But it is very easy to hide behind it's just business, it's nothing personal, when you are at odds with a difficult decision, that there is an existing personal relationship in play and you're having to go against what decision you would otherwise make on a personal level in the interests of business. What are your thoughts?
I just think it's bullshit.
Straight up. I just
think it's crap. And like you said, like in our younger years, we may have, we've probably all made decisions, business related, where you've kind of been like, it's this is in the interest of me. It's a selfish decision, and probably burnt some personal bridges along the way, because you didn't know any better, really, or you just, I don't know, you didn't have to feel the consequences of that.
Do you have some examples that you care to share? Because I'd like to kind of flesh these out for, especially for the younger listeners, and the younger viewers, and those who are perhaps at the moment, they're kind of like, I'm not so sure that I agree with where this conversation is going. Sometimes I do have to make decisions that are just business and they're nothing personal, and I'm happy to fuck people over in the process because I'm ambitious and I'm a high achiever and I'm trying to get shit done. And this is the way that I think I need to get shit done.
I had to think about this, and I guess the only ones I can really draw from were probably like from when I was DJing, and things like changing residencies and stuff probably comes into it, or like taking sets at other clubs in Adelaide or wherever, where it's a small place, and so maybe stuff like that, where I made decisions that were really like just selfishly made and not really kind of considered the business that had given me the opportunity in the first place and things like that. That's probably one that's probably like the best example I can give. Where I've kind of done that. I can't really elaborate any more than that.
How did the decision work out for you?
Oh, not great. No, not good. And not good. And I'm 15 odd years on from that now, from some of those decisions, and like you kind of sit with them still, and they still kind of irk you a little bit. Like I still feel a bit like yuck about some of those decisions, looking back on them now. With an older, wiser mind, and kind of understanding a bit more what it would have been like on the receiving end of that, and that sort of stuff you just don't consider at that age or with that maturity level. Whereas now I can look back on it and see it from the perspective of the person I was doing that to, and that's, I guess, one of the one of the things that has influenced my, real hate for this, it's just business, it's nothing personal sort of approach.
So a little bit more empathy, a little bit more wisdom. Do you think as well, being on the receiving end of it's just business, it's nothing personal, has probably enlightened that empathy in you as well?
Definitely. Yeah, because you can only sort of like think what it would be like, at when you haven't experienced it. But once you've experienced it, what it's like to be on the receiving end of that, you're way more empathetic towards it. And you think about that.
Yeah. My experience is very similar, right? When I think back to my late teens, my early 20s, when I used to make these sorts of decisions where, quite frankly, I would fuck people over and I would compromise on things like loyalty and integrity and just flat out decent human respect to try and advance my business interests. Back then, I just hadn't had enough life experience to be on the other side of it. So I had the combination of the people I look up to in business seem to do this all the time. They're successful. Therefore, success leaves clues and maybe I should be doing what they're doing. And then at the same time, I hadn't had enough life experience to go, no, hold on a second. First and foremost, this is not the way you treat people, right? And secondly, this is going to come back around to bite you in the ass. And I just hadn't had things come back around to bite me in the ass yet.
Just yet, yeah.
To understand that, when you put, like, karma is very practical. When you put that negative energy into the universe in that sort of form through making those sorts of dehumanized decisions, it'll come back. It always comes back. And it might take 5 years, it might take 10 years, it might come back in the form that it sits with you as something that you regret for the rest of your life. But it always comes back. And so I'm very similar in that. And a lot of the decisions that I kind of made was, cutting people out of business deals, right? That perhaps introduced me to a particular customer in the first place, and we had some sort of arrangement, and then the relationship developed, and I was like, I don't need you anymore. Now this is. So
you did what movie is that in? That's in Blow with Johnny Depp. that's that movie.
Yeah, those, and not big scale, right?
No,
back
he wasn't
then,
dealing cocaine, guys.
No, I was dealing. I was dealing Caspari Super Pump 250, which back then might have had cocaine in it. I'm not too sure. Yeah. The industry's changed a lot since the early 2000s. But, those sorts of things, even on the internal business aspect, we kind of worked with third-party companies that were providing services, and we grew to a certain level where we no longer needed to use those companies, but we went and poached their employees. Those sorts of things where I had developed personal relationships with the owners of the companies, the directors of the companies, and I kind of gone behind their back and stolen their employees to come work with me direct. Those sorts of situations where I thought, that's natural, right? That's the natural course of business, and the personal relationship has served me up until this point, and it's no longer as valuable to me as it used to be. And so now, fuck you. I'm cutting you out of the business on the internal side of things, and I'm going to take your employees and they're going to come work for me. Those sorts of things. But yeah, I didn't know any better at the time. I didn't have the life experience. What about the flip side? The receiving end. Give me some examples when you've been on the receiving end of, hey, Leah, listen, it's nothing personal. It's just business.
I see it a little bit with, it's hard because, I don't want to get.
Oh, if there's nothing like personal, you can talk about TMJ Apparel, you can talk about MJ.
I guess, you see it with, it happens in the design process a lot in the creative space, I think. And like Luke and I have had this discussion. We were having it just before in the kitchen where we were talking about it. And yes, there is like to an extent in the creative space, no idea is an original idea. But there is sort of using inspiration from people or brands or companies that are very close to what you do, which you see a lot. And, these days you don't even approach it anymore. You're just like, what is that? What's that saying about?
Imitation is
That's
the
the one.
sincerest form of flattery.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and you take it with a grain of salt and water off a duck's back. But yeah, that's probably the biggest one for me. If I see someone that's in this space doing something that is very obviously like has been done by us. With TMJ Apparel is one, but even with like a bunch of the stuff we do with Massive Joe's, with MJ, like it's, you see the way that we do things, and you see other retailers in the industry just literally take the exact idea and roll with it.
Just a side note, that's fucking dumb.
It's dumb. Yeah,
Like,
no, it's dumb. Yeah.
For real, guys, if you're listening and let's just preface this by saying that we've all made these sorts of mistakes, right? We've all on the come up. We haven't had enough experience. Literally what I was just saying. We haven't had enough experience to know any better, and we thought this was the way things should be done. Let me be unequivocally clear to the listeners who are young in business, starting out in business, who think that this is the way to build a business by, copying the businesses that they look up to, or however the fuck you want to kind of package it as seeking inspiration from the businesses you look up to. It's dumb for two reasons. The first reason is consumers know. Consumers are not fucking stupid, right? We have social media now. It's very easy to find out where the original idea came from. All you have to do is dig for like 10 seconds, and consumers will go, oh, you're just copying that brand. And you look fucking stupid to the consumer. That's the first reason why it's dumb. The second reason why it's dumb is because the idea you're copying is an idea that's been around for 3, 4, 5 years. So you're 3, 4, or 5 years behind the fucking 8 ball when you're copying someone else's idea. A great example, just to pull one out straight away, because I mentioned this on my Instagram story a couple of weeks ago.
What are you going to say?
No, the TMJ Apparel oversized tees.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We first did oversized tees in 2018.
We did, yeah.
And now everyone's copying them in 2022. You're 4 years behind. You're actually 4 fucking years behind, and everyone knows you're copying them. So you look like a bunch of dumb fucks.
Yeah. Look, like it, and I understand like things become like on trend, and then everyone sort of jumps on the bandwagon. But like you said, they've only been on trend quite recently, and we've been riding that train for a while. Hell, I think I've been wearing oversized tees like for the last 10 years, and I'm so happy that it's like a cool thing to do.
Now you're like, it's a vibe.
Now I'm fashionable.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Sorry, I got a little bit off track there.
No, it's fine. So look, like, and there has been some things recently that have made us, obviously, that the reason we're even having this pod topic came up, with the whole "it's just business" thing. And I mean, I'm cutthroat with it now. Like, as soon as someone hits me with like and it's just business, it's nothing personal. Like, I can think of a few examples that have happened in the last like at least 24 months, last couple of years. I just write that person off at that point. I'm like, no, it is personal. Don't pretend that it's not personal. It definitely is personal, and you no longer exist in my realm anymore, because that's just how I take it. I take it personal because
it is fucking personal.
Because it is fucking personal.
I'm gonna give a couple examples recently. Well, actually, this one is recent, but it's happened so many times. As being cut out of a business or a brand that we've helped build.
100%. Yeah, that's exactly one of the ones that's one of the reasons why.
And through the process of building a particular brand, we've developed deep-seated personal relationships with the brand owner or the brand owners, and there's a personal relationship there, and then that particular person or those particular people have decided to take the brand somewhere else, and it's like it's just business, it's not personal, but it is fucking personal. It's very, very personal. That's one example. Another example is, when we've had long-serving ex-employees who have come through the business and have built, careers in the industry off the back of this business, who have kind of left the business for whatever reasons, and then later on you find that they're working for a direct competitor.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And, it's nothing personal. It's just business. Give me a fucking break. It's very, very personal, especially an employee to employee relationship. Hugely personal.
Hugely personal.
And then on another very personal level is we've had athletes in the past.
Oh yeah.
Who
Yeah,
we've
have.
worked very, very closely with. And like, don't get it twisted. I realize there's a line here, right? Is you don't own your employees, right?
No. No. That's not what we're saying at all.
We're not saying that at all. Like, you can go do whatever the fuck you want to do. It's just about the delivery of the message and the actions that are kind of behind it. And the athlete thing as well, right?
And the way that you go about it as well. Like, it's definitely a lot with the way you go about it, because you can, we've had people come through the company that have, eventually gone on to work in the industry with competitors and things like that. But
and athletes as
and
well.
athletes,
right?
but there's the ones where it's just happened and you found out about it through gossip or like through the grapevine or, and then there's ones where there's been like an approach and a conversation about it and, a wishing of well to that person. And it's just, they're two different things, completely different things. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And just to kind of finish that off is, athletes who,
right, yeah, the athlete thing.
Where we've had very strong personal relationships and we've had contracts in place and there's been responsibilities on both sides, and the athletes have said, you know what, doesn't suit me anymore. It's nothing personal. It's just business. If you want to come chase me and try and sue me and shit, you're welcome to, but this is a decision I'm making and it's not personal. It's just business. Give me a fucking break. Like, for real. So, being on the receiving end of it on multiple occasions, I'm very grateful for, looking back, because it's given me the perspective to have the empathy to revisit those decisions I made when I was younger and go, oh man, this feels really bad to be on the receiving end of this. Perhaps I fucked that up. Perhaps perhaps that wasn't the right decision. The other thing that happens is when you're on the receiving end of this and you're delivered the, it's just business, it's nothing personal, when it's very, very personal. You mentioned that, we're a lot more connected through social media now, right? Which is one of the reasons why this is no longer acceptable. And I mentioned that there's the generational changes, which is one of the reasons why it's no longer acceptable, because you got Gen Y, millennials, Gen Z coming through who are like, the way you treat people is more important than fucking whatever business interest you're kind of trying to hide behind. And then we mentioned the karma thing. The other reason as well is because in small circles, people talk. Right? So let's just peg it back to very small circles. When you've been fucked over by somebody in business and it has been very personal, you will tell people in your small circle of business about what happened. Yep. And then when that person who fucked you over down the track at some point wants to do business with one of your associates who knew about how they fucked you over, what do you think the chances of them wanting to do business with you are?
Yep. 0, none.
Or as an ex-employee who goes and works for a direct competitor and hasn't done it the right way and then leaves that competitor to try and fuck them over to go work for the next one, what do you think the chances of them getting a job with that next employer are?
Yeah, so stupid.
Very fucking slim.
Yeah.
Because as big and as connected as the world is, a lot of these, and you would have seen this in DJing as well, right?
Yeah.
If you go way back, a lot of these very small niche personal relationships are where this stuff gets discussed.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. Reputation is everything. It really is. And like how people view you or hear about you or what they hear about you, or it's everything. It's how good businesses are built and how bad businesses are bought down. Like it's just it like everything relies on your reputation. And this whole dog eat dog world, it's just business, it's nothing personal, is one way to completely train wreck your reputation.
Yeah. And just to add a little bit of fuel to this fire.
I don't know if we need any more fuel.
Juice to this squeeze.
Yeah, go.
When I think back at, and like I said with the karma thing, right? Often it doesn't happen right away, right? Like you fuck someone over and you're like, it's nothing personal, it's just business. it doesn't happen like in 6 months or a year that you're going to have to deal with the negativity of that negative karma that you put into the universe, right? It often takes a few years. So when I think back to when I've been on the receiving end of it's just business, it's nothing personal, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and it's had enough time to kind of, work its way through, and the karma's kind of done its thing, and it's kind of come out the other end. The person who delivered that message to me is always in a worse off position in the industry, in their business situation, in their personal situation, in their situation, because it's a pattern as well. You don't just fuck one person over, you fuck everybody over.
Yeah.
Right? It's
If you're
almost
that type of person, that's what you
yeah,
do.
yeah. It's something that you get into the habit of doing, and you do it to everybody in their personal life, right? Not good.
No, never going to work out well for you.
Well, and I've every single time, it's never worked out well. So what do we got from a practical and strategic advice perspective? Let's give some tips to the listeners and the viewers who currently find themselves in a situation where there is this existing personal relationship and they have a tough business decision to make. How do you balance the business interest with virtue?
I think the key word is balance,
Yeah.
isn't it? Like, you just need to think about what you need to do in that situation to execute with integrity, and keep the respect there, and like just decide what's more important to you. Is like, is the profit and loss statement more important? Are the dollars and cents more important? Or, are you willing to sacrifice the personal relationship, like the respect, the moral like surrounding of it, just because you want to kind of get a leg up on in with money? I guess that's like that I guess that's it for me. I don't know. What do you think?
I think the first thing is to recognize that often business decisions are very difficult, right? It's one of the main reasons why business is so fucking hard, is because you have to make courageous decisions. You have to make difficult decisions, and you have to make those decisions with sufficient conviction that you're making the right decision without actually knowing if you're making the right decision. Right? So you're going to come up, if you're in business or even in your career, you're going to come up where multiple times where it's like, this is the business interest, right? And the business interest might be driven by profit. It might be driven by internal politics. It might be driven by chasing revenue dollars, whatever it is. There's a business interest over here, and there's an existing personal relationship over here. And you have a set of personal virtues, personal morals, personal ethics that making this decision in the interest of the business, you know that there's going to be a negative impact on this person who you have a personal relationship over here with, and it's going to be difficult to reconcile those two things. Right? That's just reality, because it's very easy to fall into the idealistic view of, I'm just going to treat all people the way that I would treat them, and there's never going to be any hard business decisions. And if there are hard business decisions, you know what? Don't worry about the sales. Don't worry about the profit. Don't worry about the internal politics. Fuck it. The personals, all sunshine and rainbows and all this fucking shit. Right. And I'm always going to err on the side of aligning with my virtues and aligning with my morals and ethics and putting people first and so on and so forth. It's not fucking realistic. Right. It's idealistic. Never fucking happens. The realistic is there's going to be difficult decisions. So how do you make them?
I don't know. Just while you were talking then, I just had another thought of another example involving someone that we both know. And this might be a little more relatable if there's not business owners listening, but employees listening of businesses. What if you're like in a position in a business and you've been poached by a competing business, for a better opportunity, probably an increase in wage, in salary, and so how do you juggle that? Like, what do you do in that situation? Because
And
that's
that's realistic.
That's realistic. That happens. That happened to someone we know. And so how do you navigate that?
I'm asking you the question.
I'm asking you.
You can't answer a question with another question.
No, I can. I just did. Because that for me, that's probably one that some of the listeners can relate to, and one that, I've not been I've never had to do that. But like we both know someone who has, and I'm like, well, that would have been hard. Like, how did you approach that and still sort of come out with a positive outcome, really, that seemed to be where everyone was happy and satisfied?
You need to get very, very clear on what's most important to you. That's the first, the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth step, right? You need to have a lot of clarity around what is going to bring you long-term joy, happiness, fulfillment, and satisfaction. Because it's very easy in that situation to not think about that and just go chase what looks like the better offer in the short term. And if you do that without getting clarity on what's truly important to you, you're going to jump from offer to offer to offer to offer, from employer to employer to employer to employer, and you're never going to be fucking happy, and you're never going to be fulfilled, and you're just going to be chasing the next dollar, the next salary, the next promotion. So that's the most important thing. What is actually going to bring you happiness and fulfillment? If you decide that it is progression through a promotion in a different company or an increase in salary or whatever it is, fantastic. That's going to help your decision out a lot. If you decide, you know what, that feels good in the short term for whatever reason, but it's actually more important to me to be loyal and to remember where I've come from and to repay that to the current employer, that's actually more important to me than the extra 10 grand or the new title that they're going to give me or whatever it is. We had one of these questions in your for a few episodes ago, right? You need to get very, very clear on what's most important to you. If it's the situation where it is actually more important to you, the progression, right? The extra money, the promotion, the better title, whatever it is, then it's about communicating with the current employer, with the current boss, with the person or the people who you have the personal relationship with around, this is why I'm doing this. Yeah. Not hiding behind, it's nothing personal, it's just business. Saying this is where this ranks for me, right? And this is a very difficult decision for me. And I don't want this to come across as, you know what, I'm doing this just in my personal interest and fuck you, I'm screwing you guys over and it's just business, it's nothing personal, because that's bullshit. This is very difficult for me. But this is the decision I'm making. This is why I'm making it. And I don't want it to come across as though I'm fucking you over for my own personal interests. This is just the way that this is played out. So I think that the clarity is very important, and then the communication is very important. The worst thing you can do is have no clarity and just chase the next dollar and the next promotion and then not communicate how difficult the decision is for you and just go, you know what, it's nothing personal, still want to be your friends, thank you so much, but fuck you, I'm going and doing this.
Do you think that in this process there is a step for like a discussion? Like, do you think there's like a step in this process before you actually make the decision, or, you know, where you drop the it's not personal, it's just business line? Do you think there is an opportunity that should come before that, where you almost like give the other person or business or whatever, whoever it is, like opportunity to respond? Or do you think even the consideration of dropping the line and severing the personal relationship, do you think even like, because you've already even considered that it's just like it's too far gone? Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, I wondered that. I was like, well, is there a step in there for that? But yeah, I guess if you are already considering it and you've already pretty much, you've made up your mind in even considering that, sitting with that, you've made a decision. So yeah, it's too late. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's an interesting
I didn't even
one.
have to hesitate.
No,
on
you
that.
really didn't.
Because I've seen it enough times.
Yeah.
I've seen it enough times to know
Yeah.
it's too far gone. And
If you're
to
already
be
sort
fair,
of considering if the grass is greener, then yeah.
and to be fair, the only thing that intermediary step of discussion is going to do is build resentment, right? Because if there is a discussion and the discussion sways your decision for whatever reason, after you've already gone through the first step of getting the clarity, the only thing it's doing is delaying the inevitable. And in the meantime, it's building resentment because you know the decision you wanted to make in the first place, right? Right? It's the old not closing the door behind you, leaving that motherfucker a little bit open.
A little bit ajar.
A little bit ajar. Close the fucking door, move on. But communicate in a way that's respectful, communicate in a way that shows empathy, which is really, really important. And don't hide behind this bullshit of it's just business, it's nothing personal. Because it's always personal.
Just negate that line from your.
That's what I'm saying.
just get rid of
Eradicate it. It's
Just get rid of
gone.
it. Like it doesn't.
We need to go
it's
back
not a
and
thing.
edit The Godfather Part 2. Take that shit out.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I think the kind of crux of it is you can make the difficult decisions. By all means, make them, but like don't hide behind the bullshit of, yeah, it's just business. That's really the crux of it, isn't it? Like just don't even try and justify your decision with that because it's bullshit.
Yeah, and I think when I think about when I've been on the receiving end of this, and when I think about in my younger years when I kind of dished this out as well. And it's interesting actually because just to go back to the pre-podcast chat that we were having in the breakout room here at MJ headquarters, when I asked you guys, and we came up with some things. We were like, did we there? Oh no, actually we didn't.
Yeah.
Did we there? No, actually we didn't, because we communicated that in a very humane and a very personal way. We could have there. We definitely could have. And I gave you guys an example. I said, at the last year with everything pandemic related,
Oh yeah.
it would have been very easy for me to wipe my hands and say, you know what, it's nothing personal, it's just business. But we didn't, because you know what we did? That first step, we got clarity as a company. We said, what are our core values? What's most important to us, right? As a company, we have 10 of them, right? We have our 10 company core values. One of them is integrity. One of them is commitment. Right? So if we made a commitment, it's important that we uphold our side of the bargain. And we always act with integrity. So we're never going to be in a position as a company where we're going to make a decision where we wipe our hands of something and say it's nothing personal, it's just business. It's always fucking personal.
And that is a great example to give I won't give any more detail in it, but in the field that we are in, the circles are very small, and had we done the wrong thing there, given the sort of given the outlook that we have for MJ in the future in the 5-10 year plan, that could have bit us in the ass very, very easily if we'd made the wrong decision there. So it matters. It definitely matters. A decision you make now, like you said, it won't be in 6 months. It might not even be in a year, but down the track, it's definitely going to come back and get you, 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
And if not with that same company, definitely, yeah. Like the circles are small in so many industries. So yeah, you really gotta watch how you take your steps. Definitely.
Yeah, well, it's all people at the end of the day, right?
It's all people.
It's all, and people move. And people talk. And like Maya Angelou said, people will forget what you said. They'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Never. And they'll tell people. They'll tell people how you made them feel. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Been a good chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I got some shit off my chest.
Good, me too.
I feel like I put some positive vibes into the universe. But listen, guys, I feel like we've kind of gone on a little bit of like a world
I
Kentucky
feel
tour
like
in
you
this
and I just forgot
podcast.
the microphones are here, and we've just been we've just been chatting.
Luckily, we
about
didn't
the
say
way we're
anything that
feeling
was
right
too.
now.
No, luckily we didn't say anything that was too confidential, right? But no, we kind of kept enough under wraps. But I think we've given you guys, some, enough juice in different examples of when we've dished this out, when we've been on the receiving end, when we've had the opportunity to dish it out again, and we've said, no, that's not the decision we're making. And ultimately, it comes back to that. Really, it's a fucking two-step process. It's a two-step process.
It's a simple process.
Process number 1 is clarity. Process number 2 is communication. And when you're in the very realistic and very frequent position where making a very tough business decision, where you've got a business interest over here, you've got a personal interest over here, and the two things are abrasive with each other, clarity on what's most important to you, communicate the reasons for the decision, and get this, it's just business, it's not personal, out of your fucking mouth, because it's bullshit and it's going to get you in a lot of trouble.
Yep.
That's all I got.
Yeah, no, that summed it up really well. Yep.
Leah, thank you
Joseph, thank you.
for being back on another
Juicy.
I was going to say therapy session.
Oh, pretty much. Thank you.
Pretty much.
Thanks
No,
for
I
being my
appreciate it.
soundboard.
Yeah, no, well, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Guys, if you have enjoyed listening to Leah and I chat about this particular topic, if you've had a laugh along the way, I've had a few laughs this podcast. If you guys have taken the practical and strategic advice and it's something that you think you can apply to your personal life, your business life, your career, when you come up against this situation where business and personal are kind of abrasive against each other and you're trying to figure out how to navigate through a really tough decision, the one thing that we ask is that you guys share the show. Share it person to person. Take a screenshot, post it in your Instagram story, tag Leah at LEAHMENCEL, tag myself, JOSEPH. MENCEL. You guys know what's up. We love seeing those tags and we repost as many of them as we possibly can. Leah, thank you once again. Thank you for tuning in. You could have been anywhere in the world right now, but you're here with us. We appreciate that. Until next time, we'll catch you on the flip side. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Fitness Times Business Podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform. And if you enjoyed this episode and took some value from it, make sure you share it with your friends, your family, and your followers. And if you haven't yet, be sure to leave us a 5-star rating.